Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Thanks to all of my colleagues in law enforcement for coming out today. I'm New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and I'm honored to be here in Binghamton to announce funds for a program that will protect and save the lives of our law enforcement officers and help keep our communities safer. I'm joined here today by Mayor Richard David, by Police Chief Joseph Zukoski, by Assemblymember Donna Lupardo, and I would also like to acknowledge my Executive Deputy Attorney General who coordinates my regional offices around the state, Marty Mack, the head of my Binghamton regional office, Jim Shoemaker, is here, Cortland Police Chief Michael Catalano, Cortland County Undersheriff Herbert Barnhart, Steuben County Undersheriff Jim Allard, Watkins Glen's Police Chief Thomas Struble, Elmira Heights Police Chief Rick Churches, and the Binghamton PBA President Robert Fimbres. I'm happy to have such a unified group here in support of our inVEST program. Every day, all across the state of New York, our law enforcement officers put their lives on the line. Everyone knows that law enforcement is a dangerous business, but it's often not. Often people forget about the fact that law enforcement officers never know when a routine event can turn into a violent confrontation. They deal with dangerous, often violent people on a daily basis, and they do it out of a commitment to protect the rest of us. We need, as a state and as a society, to acknowledge that we owe an enormous debt of gratitude to people in law enforcement whose job is to go towards danger so the rest of us can flee danger. We owe them more than lip service. We owe them everything that we can do to make them safe so they can keep the rest of us safe. So in June, my office announced that we were creating what we call the inVEST partnership and have dedicated $3.5 million to reimburse local police departments for the cost of bulletproof vests. This is to replace a federal program that was funding up to 50% of the cost of bulletproof vests for police departments that has been cut, and I will speak about that more in a moment. Bulletproof vests are essential life-saving equipment for our law enforcement officers. Just last month, an NYPD detective was wounded in a shootout. He would not be with us today, but for the fact that he was wearing a bulletproof vest. And as I said, bulletproof vests are essential equipment. You never know when just a routine traffic stop or serving a warrant can turn into a violent confrontation. We have a duty to ensure that all of our officers have bulletproof vests available and that they are able to replace bulletproof vests, which there's a suggested useful life of 5 years. We want to make sure that people are not wearing vests that really should be out of commission because they can't get funding. So today, I'm pleased to announce funding awards for law enforcement agencies in the Southern Tier and the Finger Lakes. 14 different law enforcement agencies are going to be receiving more than $60,000 to support the purchase of 175 bulletproof vests. That includes 36 vests for the Binghamton Police Department, 10 vests for the Cortland Police Department, 8 for the Cortland County Sheriff's Department, 71 vests for the Steuben County Sheriff's Office, 12 vests for the Watkins Glen Police Department, and 9 vests for the Elmira Heights Police Department. Statewide, we have now approved more than $2.7 million to support the purchase of more than 7,700 vests. We are happy to provide these funds, which we are getting from joint federal state investigations. So the funds come from assets seized from gangs. It is very appropriate that they're going to protect the law enforcement officers who we work with every day in our office in joint operations like this. It's appropriate that the funds are going to the Bulletproof Vest program. I have to say that it is extraordinarily disappointing that Washington is incapable of providing additional funding for a program that should be such a no-brainer. This is a program that was started in 1998 when they passed something called the Bulletproof Vest Grant Act. It was run on a strong support of both parties, run through Democratic and Republican administrations. And in New York State, we received about $25 million to pay for over 212,000 bulletproof vests through this program. In the last 3 years, we've seen that funding be cut down by 81% because there are those in Congress driven more by ideology than by principle, I think it's fair to say, that are blocking the refunding of this program. I am lobbying my counterparts in Washington, and I'm hopeful they'll restore this funding because we're providing funds for Bulletproof vests for police departments all across New York State. But this is a problem all over America. And in hard fiscal times when local budgets are tight as it is, there's really no excuse for cutting a federal program like this. So I am hopeful that we will get it launched nationally again. But in the meantime, we've made a commitment that we're going to work with our colleagues in law enforcement to ensure that our officers in New York are safe and that we don't just give them lip service and say we honor the police, we respect the police. We got to give them the equipment they need to stay safe and to get the job done. We know that no vest is perfect, but we also know that more than 3,000 law enforcement officers have had their lives saved by Bulletproof vests over the last few decades. The inVEST partnership is going to ensure that that protection is available for all the brave men and women who are working in New York every day to keep our communities safe. And we have an example of a vest here, and this is, there are different kinds of vests that are available. Some of them with harder armor are worn on the outside. There's body armor that are worn when you're in more of a SWAT team mode. There are softer ones. The National Institute of Justice rates the vests, and we defer to the police departments on identifying the specific vests they need. All have to be certified by the NIJ. But this is a matter of us just providing help to our colleagues who are on the ground, who work with us. One of the best aspects of my experience as Attorney General, I have to say, has been the seamless cooperation we've received from law enforcement agencies all across the state of New York. People willing to put their egos aside, work together to get the job done. We've taken down 18 major criminal rings, criminal enterprises, and look forward to doing more and look forward to keeping our officers safe. And with that, I would like to introduce Mayor Richard David.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Appreciate it. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to City Hall. It's certainly an honor to host you here this morning, Attorney General Schneiderman. We appreciate the fact that you come bearing gifts as well, so thank you very much for that. And many of the men and women in this room will be the beneficiary of these vests. And obviously, the vests are a very important tool for law enforcement to conduct a very dangerous job. And as the Attorney General mentioned, one of the concerns across the board is a reduction in funding from the federal level on a number of different areas. We've seen our community development block grants be cut year after year after year. Now we see increasing difficulty with regards to funding for bulletproof vests for our police officers. And what happens is the money has to come from somewhere. So from a public safety standpoint, we appreciate the Attorney General's commitment to law enforcement, the recognition of the men and women who are on the front lines doing a very difficult and dangerous job and fighting for funds to make that job safer. That's one aspect of it. And certainly, I can tell you as a mayor who's working on a budget right now, the 2015 budget, when financial resources are scarce, every dollar matters. So we have 26 vests coming to the city of Binghamton. That's just over $10,000. And frankly, every dollar matters. Every dollar counts and benefits the taxpayers of this community by providing savings. So we are very appreciative of that as well and your recognition of that. Thank you. That's right. Now, I also want to take a moment to touch on the fact that I've been in office for approximately 8 months now, just finishing up my 8th month. And there have been several initiatives during the past 8 months that the Attorney General has spearheaded. One of my first news conferences was with the Attorney General in February when he was talking about the Zombie Property Initiative, dealing with blight in our neighborhoods, not only in the city of Binghamton, but across New York State, holding banks and others accountable for the condition of the properties after they are abandoned, recognizing what happens when a property is not properly maintained, deteriorates, the impact it has on a neighborhood. He showed real leadership there with that initiative. And since then, there have been multiple other initiatives. The gun buyback program that the city of Binghamton participated in a few months ago. There was approximately 40 guns that were taken off the street at that time, making our streets safer and, of course, giving law enforcement an opportunity to run the serial numbers to see if those guns were connected in other crimes in the city of Binghamton. That was a very successful initiative that the city participated in, that was spearheaded by the Attorney General, not just in Binghamton, but across the state. As many of you know, the City of Binghamton Police Department, the police officers, as of this year, are beginning to carry Narcan, the life-saving heroin reversal medication. Just as Chief Zukoski and I were talking about equipping the police officers with Narcan, the Attorney General said that don't worry about the costs for these kits, not only for Binghamton, but for across the state of New York. I will find the money for you and for other departments. Again, that was another savings to the taxpayers of the city of Binghamton, allowing the city police officers now to be better equipped as first responders who are on the scene and being able to administer this life-saving heroin reversal medication. Again, the Attorney General wanting to equip the officers that are on the front lines. Certainly the creation of the land bank. That's something that certainly the Broome County Land Bank Corporation will be submitting an application shortly. We look forward to working with the Attorney General on that. Again, money coming into the area to deal with blight, neighborhood stabilization, demolitions. And the list goes on, and this is really over an 8-month period. So I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge all of the hard work that the Attorney General has done that has not only benefited the city of Binghamton and the southern tier, but municipalities across the state of New York. And obviously, this is only during the short period of time that I've been mayor. I know that your track record extends long before that. So please join me in giving the Attorney General a round of applause for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Chief Joseph Zukoski. Chief.
I'd just like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Binghamton Police Department, the police agencies represented here and throughout this region that were recipients of this grant from the Attorney General. The federal government dropped the ball. He stepped up to the plate, and he's going to keep our cops a lot more safer. So on behalf of all of us in law enforcement, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank to you and all my colleagues in law enforcement. It is tremendously important every day, but it's important right now in the United States that we honor and respect and celebrate the success of our law enforcement officers. New York State has been doing well overall. There are areas where crime goes up and down, but overall crime has been going down while our prison population is going down, and that reflects a lot of hard work by a lot of very, very talented and brave people. And someone who's a longtime colleague and has worked with me on a lot of progressive criminal justice legislation, Assemblymember Donna Lupardo.
Thank you, Mr. AG, for being here. We really always are happy when you come to our community. I'd like to echo what the mayor said. Your accomplishments on our behalf have been really deeply appreciated. Certainly the land bank and the zombie properties and now the Narcan. You know, that Narcan program, you can really look to individuals whose lives have been saved, and their families are so grateful for your involvement in helping us to afford this important medication. And now these bulletproof vests. I've followed along the city of Binghamton and many of my other municipalities if they've struggled to try to figure out how to protect their important men and women working for law enforcement. And now you have stepped up and stepped in when the federal government has really relinquished their very important responsibility. So a sincere thank you on behalf of my constituents, the law enforcement members who I represent in Albany, and we look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We still do have to pass that zombie properties bill in January. So with that,